How's it going, everybody? My name is BobaTalks and welcome to this Flash episode 22 breakdown and review, and this is for the episode obviously called Think Fast. Now, just plucking from the top of my head because I just seen the episode. This episode was good. There were definitely some things I really wasn't so sure about, but that being said, I'm not going to complain because this episode was very, very good in some places, which obviously I'll get to. For example, that Thinker intro, I loved that. Stuff like that in the episode was amazing, and that for me is so much better than the episodes I've complained about this season. It wasn't quite episode 7, wasn't quite episode 15, and it was filled with quite a bit of stuff that I didn't like in other episodes, you know, like the eccentric humor and stuff like that, but it definitely had less of that and more of the cool stuff I want, so that is the big advantage. But anyway, guys, before I get into this breakdown and review, why not subscribe for more Flash content like this, because I do cover the Flash, and why not just stick around if you like this video, and if you do like this video, why not hit that like button, as it really does show your support for the channel. Takes 2 seconds, and I just really appreciate it. But let's quickly talk about that beginning bit, the Argus Black site, I believe, when the Thinker posed as Diggle, but then he quickly just got triggered and just thought, screw it, I'm gonna go in and kill everyone and walk my way in like that. He said things like, you know, my wife wasn't really one for violence, but me on the other hand. So we all know DeVoe, as I keep saying in my reviews at the minute, is more machine than man, you know, and thinks that emotion's very trivial and things like that. So violence for him is really not an issue. So he just went absolutely ham, and I loved that. I really loved that. But yeah, that sequence was brilliant when he made that guy small and he just trod on him. He just froze a load of people. It just reminded me of the hallway scene in Rogue One, at the end of Rogue One, where Darth Vader was just slaying people, bringing them to the roof, striking them down. I really thought of that. If you guys remember Rogue One and that badass Darth Vader scene at the end, you all know what I'm talking about, maybe. I love how he absorbed the bullets and then just sent them back. He like reanimated like people's bodies, I believe. Either they were dead and he reanimated them like zombies, or they were kind of alive, knocked out, but then he just took control of them. I don't know, whatever way, that was really cool, because they were just getting up really twisted and just taking out the other people who were still remaining. That was just badass. Music was badass, and I love how they're showing how the Thinker is not only a formidable foe in, you know, mind and intelligence, but also obviously this shouldn't really have to be said, but insanely overpowered with all these metahuman powers. Now I'm going to skip to one of the things I wasn't so sure about, and I just feel like this is one of the things in this season. It wasn't like a bad thing. It wasn't really as annoying as the previous couples therapy things, but you know, Caitlyn in therapy, as I said, it wasn't bad. I just felt like it wasn't really necessary. I know she has this arc trying to find Killer Frost back, but I seriously feel like that kind of, these scenes with that actress, I can't remember, but you know, she's from Malcolm in the Middle, cannot remember the therapist's name, but I just feel like they're just thrown in, and that could have just been more screen time for something more important. There was other Caitlyn stuff in the episode which I feel would have been still absolutely served fine if this wasn't in the episode, the therapy thing, that is. So yeah, I was just like, that was kind of unnecessary, plus it's not really been my favorite thing. It reminds me of the very bad cringy scenes. Now you've got to feel sorry for Harry this episode. It's very interesting because obviously with Harry's brain being rebooted, because he's literally the definition of what DeVoe wanted to happen, and Harry in this episode was just very forgetful. Obviously he's forgetting how to talk. Even he forgot that he even proofread Iris's article, things like that, and I was just like, oh man, Harry, we need to fix you. I'm really hoping that he doesn't die or anything like that towards the end of the season, because I've seen talk of obviously a major death happening. Obviously I think that it's Cecile, but you never know. You never know. It could. That's not really a major death in my mind. So I don't know. You would have to hope, or would have to think, that Harry's still going to be throughout the consistent Wells throughout the seasons. Please just stop killing off Wells every freaking season. But you know, guys, happy Harry, happy Boba. Like when he was, you know, offered to help out Iris to investigate, he felt useful for once, and he was very thankful for that. But also, he was very agitating to Iris throughout this episode. But the good thing about what the Council of Harrisons taught him, and what we learned from last episode as well, was useful, and it helped the team figure out, you know, with his smiley face analogy at the end of the episode, he's still using that, you know, putting his mind in DeVoe's shoes, even putting his mind in Marlise's shoes this episode, and thinking where she could be, or like just the fact that we have to turn her and get her on Team Flash, which has been the most predictable thing of this season, really. eventually. But I'll get to Marlies more towards the end of this review because that was kind of end of episode stuff. But in this episode, Team Flash obviously learned that they have 12 hours left to stop the vote, or before the Age of Enlightenment begins. Yes, we did see more of the real Diggle in this episode, but that he kind of just disappeared. You know, obviously we had the Thinker taking over him at the beginning, but then Barry chased him, he puked. Funny, but you know, it's getting, I don't know, is that joke getting a bit old now? I don't know. I just felt like Diggle was completely unnecessary this episode. It was more of like a cool cameo, if anything. Essentially, the Thinker is using Fallout in that Argus facility as a battery to charge his satellites, which will then, you know, obviously engulf the whole world in the Age of Enlightenment, rebooting every single man, woman, and child's brain into a very primitive state. Therefore, you know, the Thinker will teach them in his way after that. So what Team Flash come up with, or really more Cisco and Caitlin, is that they will be entering Flash time to stop DeVoe, because obviously that is the only way they've got to be able to stop him within a realistic approach, because DeVoe is so overpowered. So essentially this made Caitlin and Cisco speedsters. I really like the explanation we got as well with Barry and how, you know, the Speed Force has a bubble around him, but it was more specifically how, you know, when Barry runs, he doesn't just tap into the Speed Force, he generates a Speed Force around him, so therefore he's creating lightning to protect him from the friction that he encounters when he's running. So it's like an aura, and that's very comic booky. That's what allows him to kind of I guess run without the suit on, without burning up, which I don't know, I just feel like, is that kind of a plot hole, because he did that in season 1, yet, you know, I feel like his shoes or something, you know, was burning, or the rubber was burning, and yes, you could argue, oh, he wasn't a practice speedster, therefore he didn't have the aura around him, but not really. They definitively said when he runs and taps into the Speed Force, it creates lightning around him, which gives him a bubble. So it's just like, why didn't that work? I guess mini plot hole. I'm not really being picky there. I don't care about that. It's just something I noticed, and I would love to see if any of you guys could explain that one. So since Barry can do this, the idea is that he can obviously transfer his Speed Force onto another person, or onto another object or anything, and thus engulfing them in an aura or a Speed Force bubble as well, which allows Caitlin and Cisco to be in Flash time, if you will. Now in real life, like in real time, they would only last like 55 milliseconds before like burning up like completely and being really just exhausted and well, just almost basically passing out. Their bodies can't handle it. They're not speedsters. That is what makes a speedster an amazing speedster. Otherwise everyone, I guess, could be speedsters if Barry just tapped him and gave like a little bit of a Speed Force bubble around them. I thought it was pretty cool and very necessary that, you know, as Barry said, even though they're technically speedsters there and then, it takes quite a while to get used to that. It takes a while to get the, you know, be patient, not move too fast, otherwise, you know, you will be like falling over or running into the wall at like Mark 5 or whatever it was, or Mark 3, which is an insane speed to kind of fall over at. If, you know, when you fall out of Flash time, you will be thudding the floor hard, and we saw that happen to both Caitlin and Cisco when they couldn't move their legs and stuff. So I really liked in this episode how, you know, how Barry was very agitated by this and didn't want to risk the lives of Cisco and Caitlin, especially after Ralph's death, you know, haunts him. That's the whole reason why he was getting worried, because they were falling over, they weren't mastering it, and obviously they were trying to concoct this operation to take down DeVoe, and this was just too much, too fast, and unrealistic, really, if you think about it. So this is kind of what made the episode not one of those episodes that annoy me, if you will, because it was just serious. There was some drama going on. I think that's what I miss, a bit more drama, especially that scene between Barry and Cisco, when they were basically yelling at each other in each other's faces. Now, the things that made the scene for me is not only the acting and the actual, you know, drama behind it, but also the freaking score, the music, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it was that classical piano or like choir, like loads of voices, or the Flash theme, stuff like that is brilliant. Even after the argument was over and it was like the cool down period, there was still that piano flashy stuff. That is the Flash kind of vibes I missed throughout these episodes, and we got that. I just thought that was really touching, and just seeing that drama happen between these two people was just really brilliant. And it wasn't just stupid drama, it was actually coming from a real place, and it's understandable how he didn't want to just train them for them to get killed. I don't know, guys, what do you think of that scene? It just made me feel very teary when Barry was just saying, losing both my friends, that would be the end of my world. And I was just like, Barry, man, Barry. story. Other than that, one of my most favorite things about this speedster-esque training, if you will, was Cisco's little breachling. That was just so funny. A little baby, little breach, and he was just so proud of it, like a proud freaking parent. Now, in this episode, there was obviously the Cecile stuff where she was embodying people's minds. So normally she reads them right, but now she's almost becoming this person. Now, that was interesting, I guess. Obviously, it's because of her hormones. She's basically about to burst any day now. So with her body becoming stretchy, if you will, her mind becomes stretchy. Now, I just thought it was, I don't know. I really don't know. I felt like if there was too much comedy in this episode, this would have been too much for me. You know, when Cecile was being that surfer dude and just being sick, man, freaking sick. But I guess I can let it slide, and it was a bit fun. It was funny. I do find these things funny. It's just when there's too much of it, you know, I feel like it ruins the episode for me. So it's hard for me. I feel like this was allowable, if you will, because there wasn't too much, as I just said. However, I still think it is a bit cringy. I don't know, what do you guys think? I know a lot of people aren't huge fans of Cecile anyway. I feel like she's going to die anyway. She was useful in this episode anyway, with Caitlin obviously remembering from when she fell over during the speedster-esque training that there was this suppressed memory. So Cecile isn't pointless, but I don't know. Now, towards the end of this episode, Team Flash finally came up with a plan, obviously, to save the people with the little breachlings and all kinds of other things like that. And then they obviously ended up going through with it. Barry just thought, screw it, we need to do this. It's the only way, like, the world is at stake here, really. He came around after that whole fight we spoke about earlier. So they breached into the Argus facility. We finally learned what these new devices were on Caitlin, the goggles and, like, the little arm brace kind of thing, and it was the ice shooter, I think. The most important thing to me in this episode, as I mentioned earlier, was the fact that this is actually so risky. They made a huge deal of it being how, like, insanely unrealistic how these guys can master the flash time thing, and how they could easily fall over and get killed, and this could be the end of everything. So I did feel the stakes, even though I knew it was one of those things that would kind of be okay and it would be successful. I felt like that was predictable. I still was convinced, and I think it's pretty cool when you're kind of feeling the stakes, knowing it's going to be okay anyway, but you're still engrossed into it because of the stakes. One thing I was kind of confused by is that when Barry was in flash time, that's like how he's moving around as a speedster and how he sees the world very slow, but Barry can still super speed, you know, in flash time. It's really weird. So, what? That was interesting. I would love to know what you guys thought of that, or how that works. Anyway, Caitlin and Cisco were successful. They saved the guys who were being held as hostages. Barry made it through the portal, and then that's when we had this really cool dialogue between Barry and the Thinker. And I really like these lines that they use. We got to understand DeVoe even more than ever. He just really emphasizes on what he's said before in the show. I like how even though this whole time he's been against Barry, he's been really trying to teach him a lesson, and he would just completely pard Barry by saying, "Has nothing pierced your thick gal?" That made me laugh. But, you know, it didn't really matter that Barry destroyed that one satellite with Armanette's projectile. I felt like that was predictable too. I was like, as soon as Barry destroyed it, I was like, this still doesn't really matter. That's one thing I will say about all of this. I feel like it is just insanely predictable. You got to give it to DeVoe and how they've written the villain as well. I think DeVoe's brilliant. I just think, you know, this season's tone isn't necessarily perfect for him, but I have no problem with the Thinker whatsoever. I like how they make you understand where he's coming from. He was just like, every nuke will be disarmed within 6 months. People will be getting out their phones. There'll be like no more poverty. And after all of this, he will be there to teach them and guide them onto the way of peace. And Barry was obviously using counter analogies and arguments, saying, but people wouldn't know each other. Husbands wouldn't know their wives. Parents wouldn't know their children anymore. I mean, think about what is happening to Harry. He's really, really getting, for lack of a better word, a lot more dumber. So I absolutely loved all of that. I love when we get DeVoe scenes and between Barry. I just feel like, as I said, there's a lot more drama in this episode, and that is what really gets me in the Flash, gets me into it a lot more. So I'd love to know what you thought of that interaction between Barry and DeVoe towards the end. But either way, before I get into the other stuff like the Killer Frost memory and whatnot, let's finish this bit off. DeVoe was still successful and went to Star Labs and is actually using Star Labs' satellite instead of the one that Barry destroyed to power, to enact the Age of Enlightenment. And that is just crazy, because the beams, we saw planet Earth from space, the beams were all being formed, and the Earth is about to be engulfed. And I love how the Thinker, and this is all about the Star Lab security, of course, the meme is still real, anyone can walk in. He was in the Braille room, activated Gideon, and I just love how Barry was just collapsing against the wall saying, I literally don't know what to do. And I honestly thought for a minute there, well, is he just going to think, F it, I'm gonna have to time travel, otherwise what are we gonna do? Like, what are we actually gonna do? So another huge bombshell we got in this episode that I did not see coming at all. And I definitely feel like they definitely wrote this into the show. Like, when they first did Killer Frost, I guarantee, well, in my mind, that was a particle accelerator thing, but now to make it more interesting, they're like, hey, how about we make it that she's always been like this since before the particle accelerator? This also explains how Killer Frost is actually secretly sentimental. We've seen that bleed through with, you know, look after Katie or something like that. She said those lines or similar lines to that before, showing that she actually really cares about Caitlyn. But yeah, guys, oh wow, that made things a lot more interesting, and I actually love that reveal. That's just amazing, and that is a much needed surprise towards the end of this season. I couldn't be more happy with it. And lastly, guys, back to the Harry thing. I spoke earlier in the review about how Harry's really embracing the Council of Harrison's suggestion on, you know, embracing being in the other person's shoes. He was a huge advocate for like Marlize being, you know, the one who can sort everything out, and Iris was just plain damn like salty about being stabbed with a katana, understandably so, but she thought that Marlize, there is no way she can be redeemed or, you know, trusted. But either way, at the end, they went to Oxford. We just like, yeah, they used a breach to get there, I think. And Marlize saw firsthand and was fascinated with Harry because obviously he's the personification of what the Enlightenment does to people, or what this reboot does to people's brains. So yeah, we've got to obviously have her kind of on board now. She's going to be the secret weapon, I believe. Just think how intelligent she is. Look how much she actually did for the Thinker. So imagine what she could actually do for Team Flash to disrupt Clifford's plans. And this is going to be extremely interesting for me, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's going to be an emotional battle and tale between husband and wife, you know, their bond, because obviously Marlize loves DeVoe, the man that he was even, and it's going to be really hard for her in the next episode. So I'm excited, guys. Great episode, actually. Really good episode. Not like the best episode, as I said. It still doesn't beat episode 7 or 15 and stuff for me, but it was still so much better than 1, 2, 3 and the other episodes. Like, I would love to know your thoughts on that. Do you agree with me? Definitely some elements that are almost like the cringe factors of this season. For example, the therapy thing came back, the Cecile stuff. But as I said, there was more good than bad in this episode. So I feel like with that, I can completely ignore the odd stuff like that happening in this episode. Apart from that, everybody, I'm going to call it a day with this video now. I would love to know what you thought about everything I discussed in this episode. Mainly, what I think the question of this episode and what the conversation I want to start down in the comment section is, what do you think, and how do you think, and how the hell do you think Caitlyn was Killer Frost way before the particle accelerator went off? That is today's themed question. Other than that, guys, if you enjoyed this video, why not support the channel by liking it? And if you want to see more Flash videos from the Boba himself, why not subscribe? Why do I always click? But no, really, why not subscribe for more videos like this with notifications on, of course, so you get notified of every mother flipping Flash video. Of course, I want to thank my patrons. You guys make a huge difference in me making these videos. If you're curious and want to become a patron yourself, or what even is Patreon, it is a place where you can support creators, create more content just like this. Check it out. Link is at the top of the description. My links to my social media is in the description as well as my Discord server. Be sure to join that so we can talk all things nerdy in the Boba community there. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching this Flash review. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.